All right, good evening, everyone, to the Hudsonville Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting for July 11th. We're going to call the meeting to order. Everyone is present with the exception of Andrew DeWitt, who is still on summer assignments.
We're about 12 hours away from you.
So first up, we're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first up, we have approval of our agenda.
I move that.
Motion by Mark, support. Second from Dawn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Next up, we have recognition of visitors and hearing of people present.
First is Christina Green.
You can hold on 2 seconds. Well, maybe 1 or 2 seconds. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the school board. I'm here to address support for Title IX protections. Title IX protections are essential for creating a safe and equitable educational environment for all students, including transgender and gender nonconforming individuals. As members of the school board, it's crucial to maintain a positive stance on Title IX protections to uphold principles of fairness and non-discrimination. It's important to support Title IX protections for transgender and gender nonconforming students, particularly in the light of harmful misinformation perpetuated by the media. With regards to transgender students using bathrooms aligning with their gender identities, the false narrative that transgender individuals pose a threat or desire to use bathrooms to harm other individuals is not only baseless, but also further perpetuates the stigma that continues to marginalize the transgender community. These students simply seek a basic right to use bathrooms aligned with their gender identity, a right that is vital for their safety and well-being. Media narratives that socialize to distort the issues not only perpetuate fear and misunderstanding, but also contribute to a climate of discrimination and exclusion. It's important to counter these falsehoods with factual information and empathy, affirming that transgender students deserve to be treated with dignity and respect in every aspect of their educational experience. Also, in recent years, there's been significant legislation around the exclusion of transgender athletes in sports. Title IX protections support inclusivity and diversity, allowing transgender students to participate in sports consistent with their gender identity. Claims in the media suggesting there are advantages or dominance by transgender athletes are often lack comprehensive scientific backing and are factually inaccurate or simply unsubstantiated lies. Research on the impact of hormone therapy and other factors on athletic performance among transgender athletes is evolving. However, it's essential to prioritize fairness and provide equal opportunities for all students to participate in sports and benefits from physical activity, teamwork, and personal growth. Beyond sports, Title IX addresses broader issues such as sexual assault, harassment, and gender-based discrimination in educational settings. By adhering to Title IX protections, schools demonstrate their commitment to creating a supportive environment where every student can thrive academically and socially. As members of the school board, supporting Title IX isn't just about legal compliance, it's about promoting a culture of inclusivity and respect within our schools. By embracing these protections, we uphold our moral and ethical responsibilities to ensure that all students, regardless of their gender identity, gender presentation, or sexual orientation, have an opportunity to succeed and contribute positively to our school and community. Let's continue to prioritize fairness, equity, and well-being of all students in the Hudsonville area as we uphold the principles of Title IX. Thank you all.
Aaron Judy.
Greetings, Board, and thank you, Dr. Vanderjack and team, for the work you're putting into the upcoming Title IX policies. At the last meeting, you framed this discussion saying, as a school district, it is our job to protect our kids, period. And that is the perfect way to look at it. And I want to take my time tonight to talk about why. Most of you were there in the auditorium during the meeting with the angry mob. The rest of you probably saw it on the news. While people were there trying to break down doors and being held back by police, there was a student who had the courage to stand up in front of all of that and tell you that since he had come out publicly at our school, he faced so much harassment that the only place he felt safe was in Mrs. Jeski's classroom. Huge gold star for Mrs. Jeski. Huge black eye for the rest of us. But that shouldn't come as a surprise, because in that same meeting, a crowd of angry adults cheered when one of them stood at this podium and openly threatened violence against our trans and non-binary students. And our kids saw that. And they hear stories like Next Benedict and countless others like them, whose school policies force them into bathrooms where they don't feel safe, and where single-stall unisex bathrooms have staff-only signs and locked doors, forcing our kids to choose between long-term health or short-term safety. So it's no surprise that some choose not to use the restrooms at all, often having to go hungry or thirsty to accomplish it. These kids just have to pee. Or the kid who has stopped doing the things that they love with the people that they love, because our policies have othered them so many times it's gone from a source of joy to a source of despair. And you can see the light inside of them dim a little bit more because of it. Or when a group of them come together to form a community where they can belong, they get told they can't use their real name. But they rise above and they put up flyers to invite others, and they get torn down. So they literally rise above and put the flyers higher, and they get torn down, and the cycle goes on and on. Or the student who pours themselves into a piece of art on a brick, surrounded by so many other bricks, and they get singled out and vandalized, literally crossed out of their school. I wish these were hypotheticals. I really do, but this is the very real reality for the kids in your care. There are names and faces and lives attached to each one. These stories are horrible, but they are not unique. If you can look at the YAS data, you know there's so many more stories than just this. This is not about partisan politics or a culture war or good versus evil or some perceived moral failings. This is about our children. And I hope as you undertake this work, you stand with these kids that need it most. Because like Dr. Vanderjack said, as a school district, it is your job to protect our kids, period. Thank you.
That is it for tonight.
All right, thank you, Robin. Next up, we have our consent agenda. You have the proposal for the consent agenda items. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move that.
Moved by Nick, a second.
Word.
Support from Ken. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, consent agenda is approved. Next up, we go to our regular action agenda. And first up is our board meeting scheduled for 24-25.
I can say, we set the board meeting schedule. We've not heard any feedback about, there could be conflicts, there could be changes to the board schedule. This is our preliminary, I guess our first shot at the board agenda, or board meeting dates for the 24-25 school year.
Okay, so you have the proposal for the board meeting dates. Do we have a motion to approve? So moved. Movement from Dawn, second. Second from Greg. Any discussion on the dates? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. It's approved. Next up is our bank depositories for 24-25.
Same banks as last year. That's a recommendation.
All right. You have the proposal for the list of financial institutions. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move that.
Moved by Mark. Second.
Support.
Support from Nick. Any discussion on the financial institutions? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Bank depositories are approved. Next up, we have our legal firms for the 24-25 school year.
No changes in the recommendations for the legal firms for the
All right.
24-25 school year.
So you have the proposal for the legal firms in front of you. Do we have a motion to approve?
Approved. Yes.
Movement from Dawn, second.
I'll support that.
Second from Nick. Any discussion on the legal firms? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed, same sign. All right, legal firms are approved. Next up, we have the Ottawa Area School Board appointment.
Not as easy. We need a volunteer from our board, and I will ask that you not nominate somebody that is not here. But we need.
Well, I
I'm
do
sorry.
believe Andrew was
He
the current
has.
representative.
I have not asked him.
I
if
have
he
not
had.
either.
Does anybody want to, if he is unwilling, or be I'll say a backup if he no longer wants to?
I will do that if no one else is.
All right.
So the recommendation from us
Recommendation
would
is
be
Greg.
for Andrew to be the representative and Greg to be the backup, or switch if we get hold of Andrew tomorrow.
I'm sure he'll be okay if he's the alternate.
Andrew?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So I
Greg,
think
you're
we
up
go
to number
with
one.
Greg with the nominee and Andrew as the alternate. All right,
That's our recommendation.
all right. So, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move that.
Okay, motion from Mark, second? From Ken, any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, Greg, you're the lucky one with Andrew with your alternate. Next up is our administrative appointment to the Professional Development Committee for 24-25.
Along with Mrs. Taylor, we've in the past had Mr. Ross as her cohort as administrator to work with the Professional Development Committee. We are recommending Mrs. Taylor with Mr. Bear. I know there's other things in the agenda later today, but that all works out. We'd like Mrs. Taylor and Mr. Bear to serve in that capacity. That's our recommendation to the board.
All right, so we have the proposal for Amy Taylor and Matt Baer to serve on the Professional Development Committee. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
From John, second.
I'll support.
Second from Nick. Any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, congratulations, Amy and Matt.
Man is still smiling. so-
I just found out all this now.
Lives here, Andrew.
All right, next up is our interim superintendent designation for 24-25.
So it's my recommendation to the board that Mr. Briggs, our Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance, serve as the interim superintendent in the event of my absence or even extended absence.
Yep, and that has been the same in past years.
That's correct.
So we have the proposal to approve the Assistant Superintendent of Business and Finance to serve as the interim superintendent in the event of Dr. Vanderjack's absence. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Movement from Dawn, second.
I'll support that.
Nick? All right, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed, same sign. All right, Pat, you're the lucky one. All right, next up, we have professional memberships.
Same memberships as in the past, the Michigan Association of School Boards, as well as the Ottawa Area Intermediate Association of School Boards is our recommendation for the board.
All right, you have the proposal for the professional memberships. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move that.
Movement from Nick, second.
Oh, second.
Second from Greg. Any discussion on the memberships?
Is the MASB membership also make you a member of the national?
Yes.
Okay. So if you wanted to go to a conference, you'd be considered to be a member?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed, same sign. All right, motion's approved. Next up, we have our school bond loan application.
Thank you. So as the district has been a member of the School Bond Loan Fund for going on 2 decades. The School Bond Loan Fund is designed for a district like Hudsonville that has, through rapid growth of, say, residential growth, the overall values of the community are not as high as a community like Grand Haven that has the lakefront property, or Rockford that has lakefront property. So it's a special vehicle set up with the state to accommodate for a district that's growing faster than its overall property base. Even though our property base is growing, it's just not as it hasn't caught up to what it normally is for a community of this many students. So this is like a line of credit at the state level. It's worked very well for the district for, I'd say, decades. If you look at the resolution, our property base, because of our rapid 9 to 10% tax growth, we're paying back our loan at a pretty quick rate. Last year, we borrowed from the fund $2.48 million. This year's estimated borrowing is $1,026,000. So I believe next year, the 25-26 year, will be really in the payback mode for that loan. So as part of that being in the fund, this is an annual resolution that's required that the board can approve it in June, I guess, but it'd be tough to have all the numbers. We've got to submit this by August 1st. So the details are here. It's got our beginning balance on page 2 of the resolution with the amount of accrued interest during the year with an ending balance stated there at $30 million that we will begin paying back next year. As I said in the work session, in past years, if interest rates are just the market's right, there's times when the district has actually locked it into some other long-term debt and not just had that line of credit type debt at the state level. We've done that at least 2 times in the past. Once since I've been here since 2015. So, any questions on the resolution?
All right, so we have the proposal for the school bond loan application. Do we have a motion to approve? Movement from Ken, second.
I'll support that.
Mark, any discussion, questions for Pat? Reviewed in the work session. All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Loan applications removed. Next up, we have our mower and snowblower purchase recommendation. Mr. Briggs again.
Yes. We'll not go into this in as much detail. We've bought several mowers and tractors in the last couple of years, but we are happy with the price. This is slotted to go to Mower Elementary and will be, if approved by the board, will be funded by bond proceeds.
All right, so you have the proposal from Mr. Briggs from the mower and snowblower purchase recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion from Dawn, second.
I support that.
Second from Nick. Any discussion or questions for Pat? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Great. Mower, snowblowers, been approved. Next up, we have our camera bid purchase recommendation. Again, Pat.
Thank you. Again, this was reviewed in far more detail at the work session, but to summarize, we are outfitting the rest of the locations, the critical locations in our elementary schools do not have cameras, and the rest of the current bus fleet. We don't have the buses that are on order they're coming in sometime this year. We just don't know those buses are coming in yet. But this will outfit the rest of our fleet in our elementary buildings with cameras, and the recommended bidders are set forth in the recommendation. This is also bond funded.
All right, so you have the proposal for the camera bid purchase recommendation for a total of $592,648. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move that.
Movement from Nick with support from Ken. Any questions for Pat? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, the camera bid purchase recommendation has been passed.
Thank you.
Next up, we have our food service building renovation bid recommendations.
Yes, We, as I said, we did have a more robust conversation about this in work session, but to summarize, we are recommending these bidders to replace the roof, redo the loading dock, and there's a separate project being funded separately that's gonna replace the outside freezer at the central kitchen located over on 40th Street, right next to central maintenance. The piece that's unique here is the roofing section of this, because it cannot be funded by food service proceeds. That cost is gonna be borne by our sinking fund, if approved by the board. The rest of the $703,000 is going to be reimbursed to Hudsonville by the Jenison Hudsonville Food Service Department.
All right, so you have the proposal for the food service building renovation recommendation of $703,090. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion from Dawn, second.
A second.
Second from Greg. Any questions for Pat?
Remind me, it's like a fall start?
As soon, probably just as soon as we get back to school. We'll be going, they'll start mobilizing sooner than that, probably. We might get some of the dirt work done this summer.
It's complex because of that's our central kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. I remember you
Kids
talking
to
about
eat.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
Marrying the teen is what's the challenge, right?
We're fired up.
Sure they are.
All right.
Barry's not here.
Yes, correct.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes.
Thank you.
Next up, we have our high school world language courses.
Yes, as we discussed in our work session, this is recommendation for board approval of our world language courses. Just by way of reminder, these are not any new courses. This is just that formality of having on the books a formal approval of each course that is offered across the district.
And also for clarification, we have done this for almost 9-10 months. We're almost done.
Okay, good.
So I know when we
Good.
first brought this, the question was, can we break these down? So we've broken them down, we're getting closer.
I think we'll be done by October, I think is our projected timeline.
Thank you again.
All right, so you have the proposal for the high school world languages courses. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move.
Motion from Ken.
Support.
Second from Dawn. Any questions for Amy? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, approved. Next up, we have our board policy updates, second reading.
So these are the second reading for the policies that were brought to the board at a work session about a month and a half ago, and then the last board meeting as a first reading. There have been no recommendations for changes to the policies, so this is the second and final reading that will go and be implemented actually tomorrow. So this is our recommendation to the board.
All right, so you have the proposal for the second and final reading of the board policy updates. All the policies are listed there. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion from Dawn, second.
Support.
Second from Nick. Any questions? Dr. Jack? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes. Next up, we have our 2021 Title IX policy revision.
So let me, I want to be, this is a little bit gray. I'm going to explain this. I explained it to the board a little bit in a communication to them. We have a Title IX policy that is in place as we speak right now. Come August 1, we have to have a new policy in place based on new regulations. The old policy is based on 2021 regulations. I'm not going to get into, this is not about how, these are not administrative guidelines on how things are addressed. These are actually the policy that has to be in place per legal requirements. So there was some discussion, we heard some feedback from our community regarding the concerns about how they're handled, but we first have to make sure we have the right policies in place so that we are taking care of every one of our kids. To do that, we have a current policy that only is in effect until the end of this month. So the recommendation for a first and final reading is to address our current policy to state that this policy only is in effect until the end of the month. So if something has happened prior to the end of the month, we have to use our old policy. We will bring to the board, and I'll talk about that later in this meeting, about the new policy. We're not asking for any approval tonight for a new policy. I'm going to talk about what that looks like in a little bit. This is simply a change to add one might have been 2 sentences, I don't have it in front of me. Just saying that this policy only is in effect until July 31, 2024. There is a current stay on the new regulations, but I'll talk about that later. So nothing else in our policy is changed in that recommendation, simply a segment so that we're aware that this policy basically sunsets, but we have to keep it because there could be a situation that took place prior to July 31st, and we have to follow that policy that was in place at that time. Does that make sense? And I know we normally ask for first and second reading because the language is not changing in the policy. It's simply a disclaimer on the expiration of that policy. I've asked the board to approve a first and second reading. I had a brief conversation with both our president and vice president on the board regarding this. If there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to entertain them.
Okay, so we have the proposal for the first and final reading of Board Policy 2266. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion from Ken, second. Support. Second from Dawn. Are there any questions for Dr. Vanderjagt? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next up, we have our human resource items, and we're going to hand it over to Ms. Ann Armstrong.
Yes, I have 11 amazing new, hopefully new staff members that I'm bringing to the board tonight. First up, I have Josie Vincent, so I asked them to stand. Josie, Josie is not a stranger. Her mom is actually a teacher over at Allward, and they're going to be colleagues. Okay. But Josie is a current graduate, just graduated from Hope College. She did her student teaching and then a long-term sub stint at Georgetown. And actually, I think where she did her long-term sub is the position that she's now being recommended for is a kindergarten teacher at Georgetown. We thought we lost her. We got her back. I was really excited. So we are very excited to recommend Josie for kindergarten at Georgetown. Next we have Janae Hartman. And Janae comes to us from Illinois. She just recently graduated as well with her degree in ASD. And she is going to be teaching at the 5-6 building in the ASD categorical classroom. She had an amazing demo where both Melanie and Mandy came running, couldn't tell me fast enough how great she was. And, we really didn't want to lose her either because we just know that she's going to be so beneficial to the families and the kids in that ASD program. So we're super excited for tonight. Next we have Olivia Mazur. And Olivia, did I say that right? Last name? Mazur. Oh, I knew it. Okay, sorry. So Olivia comes to us, also a recent college grad, and she is from Ferris. And Ferris, I tell you what, we've been knocking it out with Ferris grads, so I'm excited. But she, during her, we had a quick little screener interview, and she was just saying how some of the things that she loved about her own hometown of Comstock Park, she sees in here. And then she went and she did a demo lesson in front of, I want to say 10 kids at Riley and teachers, everything, and she just knocked it out of the park. I mean, it was a fantastic demo. So we're really excited for her to teach social studies at Riley Middle School. Next we have Max King. Max, student taught as well in our district at Bauer, and Max is with the Littles. And so Max, we knew we were going to place him. We knew we were going to own Max. But he was a great sport, and he did demos several times in different grades, and we kept having him with Littles, and then finally he's like, I actually would be really happy with older kids, and we're like, oh, 5th grade. So I'm really excited to recommend him for a 5th grade position at the 5-6 building. Next we have Jared Stevenson. Jared also did his internship in social work at South Elementary over here, and then we had a maternity leave in social work at Jamestown Lower, and in what other building? Jason Lauren in Upper, yeah, that's right. I knew it wasn't just guy. And he covered that for us as well at the end of the year. So we actually kind of feel like we've already had him for a year. But we're really excited for Jared to work with our students again and well into the future. So he's going to be a great advocate for kids. So I'm really excited about that. Next, we have Olivia Kreider. Olivia Kreider is not a name that you don't know. She is a current 5th grade teacher in our district, but I wanted to bring her for recommendation because we're recommending her for an instructional coach with emphasis in math. And Amy's so excited to get her to be a part of her crew. Olivia has a master's in math. She was the 5th grade department chair. She was the lead of the math pilot for our new curriculum that you've all learned about throughout the last year. And she's a very passionate young educator that I think is going to do great things for K-12 kids now and not just the 5th grade. So very excited. She's not here tonight. She was married July 7th. Just to let you know. Rachel Penny is a new, July people leave, but Rachel we're recommending for hire as a 5-6 counselor. Really excited. Her district that she was at before was Forest Hills. She is super personable. Very excited to work with this age group of students for all kinds of needs, and she graduated from GD's counseling program, so excited to have her. Patricia Goucher has 20 plus years of experience as a school psychologist, and she is coming to us from East Grand Rapids. She has family in the area and just wants to be even closer to watch that family, grow and learn. And we're very excited to have her knowledge and experience in to take off running in school psychology for the district. Next, we have Deborah Chow. Deborah is a Calvin grad, which is, I know, a Dutchman right here, but that's okay. We're going to hire him. Deborah, I'm recommending for hire as also a 5th grade teacher at the 5-6 building. Deborah's not here tonight because she lives in Thailand. Her family's from Thailand. And she went to an international school in Thailand, and one of her friends had graduated from Calvin, and so she went to Calvin. I met her at a job fair and was like, how did you end up here? And she's a great story, really smart, intelligent young educator that can teach math, elementary, and English K-12. So we're excited to have her and her many certifications in the district. Next we have Jennifer Dobb. Jennifer Dobb comes to us from, she taught resource at Hamilton Public Schools, and then she moved out to Maryland, where she lived and was an educator, and kind of had a very similar PBIS specialist type position, but in Maryland. And she has a lot of special ed background, special ed education, and so she's being recommended to hire as a new PBIS specialist at South Elementary, and I think that she brings that team of special PBIS specialists, just another great advocate and knowledge base for special education, along with all the many things that they do within that MTSS process. And then finally, we have Lauren Robertson. And Lauren is a graduate from Calvin University as well. I knew it was coming. She also is a Hudsonville grad. She is infectious, ambitious, and joyful. She used those words, and I would agree 100%. She's being recommended for a resource position at Riley. She's fired up to be a part of that team. I think Matt and his crew were very impressed with her, as were Mandy and I. So that is the 11 educators that I am recommending to hire. And I thank you for trusting in me to recommend these people.
All right, so you have the proposal for the human resource items with all the new hires listed. Do we have a motion to approve? Movement from Ken, second.
Support.
Second from Nick. Any questions for Ann? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, welcome to all of our new hires. We are very happy to have you. All right.
Relax before the kids show up.
It won't be much longer, it's going by fast. Next up is an administrative hire.
I do want to thank Mrs. Armstrong for all her leadership on this also. We know when Mr. Ross announced his retirement, we had a building that is looking for some great leadership, and we found an amazing leader to lead the building. Matt Baer has served in capacity as a dean, an assistant principal. He has served in all of our secondary buildings, except for 5-6 building, I guess technically, but he has served in all the buildings in different capacities. He's just good for education. He's good for leadership. He's good with his staff. He's good with our administrative team. It's a great fit. We're very fortunate. I will say that Matt, there were some great candidates that applied for this job, and we found the best one, but he had to work for it, and he did an amazing job. So he did not get the job, he earned the job, and I will say we are very pleased to recommend Matt Baer to be the principal for the 24-25 school year at Riley Middle School.
All right, so you have the proposal to appoint Matt Baer as the Riley Street Middle School principal.
I'll move that.
Okay, movement from Mark.
I'll
Second.
support.
Second from Ken. Any questions for Dr. Vujicic?
Nick.
What was Nick?
Sorry.
Okay. Any questions for Dr. Vujicic?
I will make one quick comment. Similar to Mrs. Armstrong, we are not quite done hiring administrative positions. Now we have to find a replacement for Matt. She's not quite done hiring teachers. We're not quite done hiring administrators, but we look to bring a recommendation to the board in August. We're currently working on filling, which also are big shoes to fill. So.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes. Welcome, Matt. Welcome to your new position.
Congratulations.
All right, next up we have our report items, and first up is our SOAR V update.
Yeah, we wanted to give the board an update on our strategic plan that is a living and breathing document for our administrators, but we don't always get a chance to give you some updates. So I'm going to ask each of our departments to give a brief update, maybe a couple talking points, and I'll just go through the list. We'll start with Mrs. Taylor, and just a couple of things that maybe her department is working on regarding our current strategic plan.
Sure. So I decided to give a brief overview of one of the goal areas, a long-term goal that we've been working on even this year, to expand opportunities for students to explore college and career pathways. So one big item under a ginormous umbrella is really expansion of career tech opportunities for our students. So we have students that fill up about 180 career tech center spots out at our Ottawa Career Tech Center. However, we typically have a wait list for students who want to get into programming, and we don't have enough spots for all of those students. And so under this umbrella, taking a look at applying for recognition from the state for current courses that we have offered at the high school to qualify as CTC programming. As we move forward, CTE, sorry, that stands for Career Tech Education. And so we started the process in the fall. One of the requirements of that process of applying is that you have to develop an advisory committee. And the advisory committee is made up of about 25 business leaders, parents, and students. Local organizations are part of that. Apex Controls, Gemmons, Royal Technologies, various businesses in the community are part of this, which is also an exciting partnership. And that committee was really the first step in taking a look at our application to the state on the current courses that we offer and the standards that we teach within each of those courses that really rise to that level of rigorous academics and technical standards, as well as that career readiness. They were blown away by the content and the teachers who are really teaching these courses at the high school in three main areas. One is business administration, management, and operations. 2 is finance and financial management. And then 3 is mechanical drafting. So there are several courses under those umbrellas, but those are the 3 main areas. Again, the advisory board was blown away by everything that they heard in the fall, and unanimously approved our application to the state, and each of those applications was approved for CTE programming to be recognized. Some of the benefits of that programming is not only the recognition of the knowledge and skill, but there are specific credentials, which then became part of the meeting in the spring that we had with our advisory board to review the specific credentials under those 3 buckets of courses that students can potentially earn if they take certain courses within those particular topic areas, if you will. So examples of credentials could be Microsoft Office credential, or Excel, or QuickBooks in the area of finance. So those credentials then become those skills that students can add to resumes if they're going not only into maybe a particular area of interest in their work life post high school, but even take into their college experience to expand on the knowledge that they gain in high school. So that's a brief update. Really, the large vision is to create a continuum of opportunities for students to learn about careers and pathways starting in elementary. That's a snippet of some of the work that we've been doing in high school.
Questions for Mrs. Taylor?
Amy, so does that mean that we're offering more right here in Hudsonville instead of sending the kids to the ISD or the intermediate where there's not enough spots for them?
Yes, it would be students, yes, it's more opportunities
Right.
for students to engage in that career tech education
Okay.
without a
Right.
potential spot at the ISD,
Okay,
so to say.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Just to clarify, we're not offering more options than they are at the
Right.
ISD when it comes to career. We're offering options here that kids would not be allowed to go
Right.
there to take. So-
Good, well, that's excellent, because I've heard from a couple of parents throughout the last couple of months about, wanting to get their kids into this, especially with, a lot of kids looking at maybe not going to college.
Sure.
And going some other, so thank you very much for that, I appreciate it.
High school teachers have been extremely motivated and
Mm.
passionate about this work. They're doing a great job in leading something.
So for a student who maybe would have wanted to go junior and senior year to career tech, which I understand they could do, if they did some of these courses in their junior year because they couldn't get in, would some of that sort of transfer their senior year to Career Line Tech?
From a knowledge and skill perspective and even credentials perspective.
Okay.
So it's not one or the other necessarily. It's just additional opportunities for
Okay.
students under those 3 buckets of the business administration, finance, and then the mechanical directing. So-
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions for Mrs. Taylor? Thank you very much. Mrs. Armstrong, Human Resources.
Yeah, so I thought I'd highlight kind of one of each goal or, ongoing short-term, long-term that we've been working on with human resources. Although I would like to say under areas of focus, it does say retention and positions, and I think, right? But anyway, so just kind of piggybacking off of what Amy was saying, under long-term goals, one of the goals is grow in-house options for students within career and technology exploration courses. And so one of the things that I've done within HR to make sure that our teachers have the right credentials to do that is work with Chad and Jen and Joe to ensure that the state agrees that they are qualified to teach these courses. And so there's just a lot of she's front of the house, I'm back of the house, type of skills for that. And then the other thing is I'll be attending a meeting with the MDE on July 23 to just ensure that we, not even just for these 3 teachers, but any alternative certifications that are beneficial for our teachers so that we can get the right programming in front of kids, that we know what we're doing, and that doesn't have financial implications within the business department. So that's one of the long-term goals that we are working towards in HR, as well as under ongoing, we have developed wellness practices for adults who encounter or handle difficult situations during the school day. One of the things that Angie Briggs-Johnson, who has really kind of turned that COVID dollars into wellness dollars, she got training to be a trainer of a mental health first aid. And this is something that we could then train teachers, but really we were kind of thinking more of our paraprofessionals, our recess aides, possibly even bus drivers, just different people that can help not only students but other adults in any type of just situations where we feel like people might need some support. And they wouldn't be the first people providing the support, obviously. It's more of the people to notice, hey, I see that you might need help, and now we're going to get you some help. So that's something that we think is really important for staff, and so Angie went ahead and got that trained, so we're very excited about it. The other thing, the high school counseling group had talked about a possible book study with just for staff about the anxious generation, which we didn't know much about. So Angie and I are reading it right now, specifically, just to really see is this something that we feel that could explain some of the reasons why even we're feeling anxious. And so as society or just as humans. So Andrew and I are doing a little book study to help with the wellness of our staff. So we're doing that. And then finally, in short-term goals, one of the things I wanted to point out was evaluating needs for expansion within the building staff for mental health services. And hopefully you saw that tonight with the hire of Rachel Penny, who is an additional counselor to service the 5-6 building. And then really, I'm going to take credit for it under my goal, but really Mandy's work within a 31N grant that we are kind of receiving from the ISD, but we are going to be providing different types of services to the elementary buildings as well within mental health. So very excited about that and that staffing, but I do feel like hats off to my colleague over here, but I hired them. Thank you.
Any questions for Mrs. Armstrong?
What do you think about that, Mandy?
Yeah, it's always a
Should you get the
partnership.
credit or should, you know?
It's always a team effort, yeah.
There you go. Good
That's
answer.
the right answer.
To piggyback on that, one of our long-term goals is looking at our consistency in procedure and protocol around referral systems. So that relates to any kind of problem-solving team that we have across the district. Whenever a student is struggling, we want to avoid that common phrase of falling between the cracks. We want to have the data and systems and the referral processes so that we can quickly notice when a student needs more from us and we get them to the correct team. So with these additional positions, I'm really excited that we're going to have essentially 2 Arbor Circle therapists that are dedicated to secondary and 3 to the elementary and 5-6 building, following a consistent referral process for those students who either have experienced a blue envelope event, and just by way of reminder, that's if they have experienced suicidal ideation, or if their family is experiencing true barriers to accessing mental health. We know that there's a shortage of providers in general, so to be able to have these positions in-house, I think is really fantastic because we're going to be able to be so much more responsive in providing these students and families access to care that they might not receive otherwise. So we're making headway on that goal. Obviously, with onboarding the 3 new positions, we're going to learn as we go, but we have an initial start on what that referral system will look like, and really already working on kind of a wait list document of which students would be our first referrals in the fall. Another short-term goal I thought I would touch on is related to trauma-informed practices. So to give you the background on that goal, in the 1920 school year, we had a partnership with an agency called Developmental Enhancement, which also provides psychological services in the community. And they had sort of a resident expert on trauma. And so they did a complete professional development for our elementary and secondary staff on what is trauma. And it gets kind of floated out there as maybe a, what's that called, hot word or a hot topic. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And let's really try to differentiate what's the difference between trauma and stress, and then how do we notice the triggers for either, and how can we support that when we see students walk through the doors that may be carrying that. So that was fantastic, and then as you know, we moved into the COVID pandemic, and that same partnership with Developmental Enhancement was able to provide some on-the-spot virtual training to staff about this is what the students are going through right now, but also this is what you're going through. And so What we saw in the SOAR V comments was from teachers, hey, can we have more of that, or can we revisit that? It's been a little bit of time, and we know we've also onboarded several new staff members. Can we have a relaunch of that? So we look forward to doing that in a couple different ways. With the PBIS specialist group, they are planning to embed that in new teacher orientation so that any new staff moving forward gets the same sort of basic training on what is trauma. But then also what we're going to be doing is offering sessions for those people who are part of problem-solving teams to do sort of a fishbowl activity and then do case study, obviously without any confidential identifying information, but really doing some learn from each other about let's put some of these recommendations into action and identify what else is there out there that educators are trying and what more can we learn, and those training sessions will be facilitated by developmental enhancement as well. So we just appreciate that they're an available resource to us and that they're going to be familiar faces for staff. Thanks.
Any questions for Mrs. Thomas?
Mrs. Thomas and Mrs. Armstrong, and I'm going to pick on some of the new teachers here. Do we feel that at the college level, as you're preparing to be teachers, have the colleges caught up with the mental health and the wellness part of being a teacher and how that works with students? Anybody want to say?
I will just say from a standpoint from, at the end of interviews, we always ask, do you have any questions for us? Mm-hmm. And I will say, 7 out of 10 will ask you the same questions, but there has been more questions this year, even than last, of, how are you going to take care of me? Now, I'm saying it very, they say it much nicer, but that's really what they're asking, and, what kind of supports. And I will tell you, we get really big eyes and like big smiles when we talk about some of the, wellness things that we have for staff, specifically. Of course they want to know about the kids, but they want to know about themselves too. So that's what I could comment.
Yeah, and I would just say so much of that comes from the learning experience during that internship year. I know that beginning in your career, you learn what you didn't know, and so having mentorship and support during both the internship year and then your first 3 years are really pivotal. So I'm glad to see that colleges are being intentional about pairing students with giving them the advantage to run the class, experiencing that there may be students in the class that carry those factors with them. But then I think that's also a real advantage of having the PBIS specialists available to them to walk through them as they're experiencing new challenges in the classroom during their first few years.
And the one other thing I would just say, Dawn, is that some of the work that I've been doing with the administrators is just talking about generational workplace, and that's not something that's specific to here. It's everywhere, and I think that we do need to do some work there. I think that as a Gen Xer, I might have some thoughts about, what do you mean that you turn it off when you go home, And I think we do need to do a better job of just realizing that it doesn't matter your age. You're a professional in this career, it's really hard, and you're going to handle it the way you need to handle it. And we need to teach tools to the new staff of how you handled it, and maybe they can teach us some tools on how to balance it a little bit better as well. So I look forward to learning from all you, Ms. Collins.
The thing that I would add from an instructional services perspective is all new teachers, so get ready for this, we have instructional coaches that go through coaching cycles with those new teachers, and that is where they sit alongside a new teacher, or any teacher, but in this case, new teachers, and reflect and set goals that are based on what they want to grow in, and a lot of times that has to do with classroom climate and culture and processes and procedures to have classrooms function at high levels so that learning and teaching can actually occur. And so that is also work that is done to support new teachers in then connecting to PBIS specialists when those additional behavior supports are needed, et cetera. So there's been a lot of work within systems that I think are are great places for new teachers to feel supported in those ways.
I'll be at the new teacher orientation, so if anybody wants to talk to me about what they learned.
You have your table?
Yes.
You know, I think it's important to, you know, as we introduce these new folks and they're all excited about it, and they're all excited about it, there are going to be times in your career, maybe even the first day, where you're just going to say, what have I gotten myself into, or what am I doing here, I'm not adequate for this, or whatever. And I think all three of our administrators are saying to you that there are places for us to help you. And there's people in this district to help you and to stand alongside of you with things that you may not even anticipate are coming up now. And don't be afraid to take advantage of those, of the wisdom of the other people and what's going on here, because we want to support you in every way that we can so that you can support the students in a unique way that only you can do it, in every way you can. And we want you to be successful. And so don't get yourself into a situation where you're just trying to do all this on your own, and take advantage of what they're saying, because they mean it.
Mr. Briggs?
Thank you. So I will touch on a short, long, and an ongoing area. If you saw tonight that there was a recommendation to increase the number of cameras in elementary buildings and also the bus fleet. So that kind of come close to wrapping that one up. Sure, as a short-term goal. We're working on the other ones, but that's I'd like to highlight that one. In the long-term area, we have been working, say, at this point, it's more Dr. Vanderjack, Lee, and I gathering items for the 5 to 10 year facility team look. We're going to start this year doing more of that. Sometimes it's called master planning, and that is just a good practice that the district has done long before I came on the scene, but it's just a great thing. And then usually that ends up, that list ends up at some point being presented to the board for potential new bond issue. So we're working on that. Items, I'll just highlight one item that's in short term. The idea of adding air conditioning to the district, we hear about that all the time. All the time. The places where it's, and for instance, right now we have a building that's got really nice air conditioning, and that's where summer school is in Georgetown. And I was in there today, and it's, just a day like today, you're just so much more productive in that building with air. It's just becoming, as students have more, I would say, breathing issues, it's also more important than it ever has been to support that in students. And then another thing I'd like to highlight in the ongoing area is, and it's been a little more difficult to keep this on the strategic plan. We've heard, I thank the board for this, is that there's always been support from the board. The long-term, ensure the long-term financial stability of the district through conservative budgeting practices. The board, ever since I've been here, the board supported that, and we put that into practice with the last budget. We did that, and I thank you for your support, and it's served us well. So that highlights the areas of the finance and operation goals.
Any questions for Mr. Briggs?
Thank you.
Last but not least, we have our co-curricular goals. I'll give a couple quick highlights. Under short term, the last one is the study of co-curricular needs of students with special needs. As you recall, you've seen and witnessed Eagle Claw, those students performing. And new this year is an adaptive music class. So it's not just those kids being out and getting a chance to showcase their talents, but now we have a class for them, which is great. So adaptive music will be exciting for the kids. You've heard a little bit about the CTE that Mrs. Taylor talked about. That's another one of the co-curricular goals, and working in concert together, trying to make sure that those, with Mr. Seitzma, that those opportunities continue to increase for our students that are looking along that path. From a long term, we have to evaluate the need of providing summer programming and tutoring to non-qualifying students. You've heard in the past, and Mrs. Thomas has talked about, Mrs. Taylor with special ed, Mrs. Thomas with our exceptional learners program. So we have students that are now getting opportunity for special or for summer programming. We do know that it's something we'll have to continue to evaluate. We know there are structural and budget concerns. We'll have to look at program evaluation, but that at least has increased to give kids an opportunity for summer programming. And then last but not least, under ongoing goals, identify extracurricular club interest, looking at new clubs and what that means. We have, robotics has been a robust club, but now we have a facility, a permanent facility that should be ready on August 21. It's looking really nice in there. We have robotics. Esports has opened up. Mr. Steenster's not here, but he's worked closely with their esports program. They have their own dedicated esports room now, which is now competing, which is exciting. It's not just go home and play your games and then it's like it's a group and it's great for kids. We've seen an increase in our cooking classes for our youth this fall, thanks to Mrs. Fabiano upstairs, and as well as the Eagle Rocket Cheer, which if you ever want to experience that experience is 300 to 400 littles doing rocket cheers. So just giving more opportunity for our community. And one of our biggest goals that we're going to work on this coming school year is now looking at our new facilities. They are directly, there's kind of a domino effect, but we now have 3 new gymnasiums with Park opening up this fall, and Bowers is ready to go. They've already used it at the end of the school year. Forest Grove's been using theirs, and we have our field house. So what does that look like from a community usage and going from there and trying to organize and get that all figured out? They're all different, and there's a lot of moving parts to it, but that's our goal for this coming year. Most of it won't go into place until January, and then we'll have to work through that. Any questions about co-curriculum? We are always willing to give updates regarding the strategic plan if there are additional questions throughout the year. Traditionally, we try to give them twice a year. So if you want other feedback, if there's like, hey, can we get an update? Please just reach out. We'll be more than happy to give updates regarding the work. And I hope, I am very impressed with the 4 people to my right. I hope you are also. They do an amazing job balancing their jobs and also keeping the vision of the district in place as they're working through. It's a heavy lift, and you and all the people that are working with you are appreciated. Thank you. Appreciate the updates. That's it.
Is that your superintendent?
That is not. That's our SOAR
I
update.
didn't think so.
So you ready for my update?
Yep.
All right, here we go. So we talked a little bit about Title IX, and I'm going to give you I've sent you some information. There's plenty of information you can read regarding Title IX. We are talking about transitioning from Neola policies to Truman policies, and I've been trying to tackle that. It's been a heavy lift in the last, I'll say, week, trying to get it going. There is what's considered a standalone policy with Truman, which is a Title IX policy. I am going to recommend to the board we shift to that policy, because I'm also going to recommend to the board that we move to Truman policies for the 25-26 school year. I've done enough work looking at the pricing structure, the transition cycle, after our last meeting, so that I feel like that's the right move. Talking to neighboring districts that have transitioned, some that have not, but there's some, I would say, some very similar districts to ours that are moving for the reasons we spoke about at our last work session. To do that, we would have to transition to a new Title IX policy. So my recommendation would be that we move to the Truman Title IX policy. When I say Truman Title IX policy, I'm talking about based on the 2024 regulations. Our current policy, which you just approved a little bit of a tweak to it, is based on 2021 regulations. So the 2024 regulations would have to have a policy passed by August 1. There is currently a stay in the regulations and the implementation that could impact Michigan. Every day, there's a change into when this is going to happen or not. We are treating it as if it's still going to happen by August 1. Even though I think Mrs. Armstrong was in a webinar yesterday, and then I spoke with the people that ran her webinar today, and it's changed since her webinar yesterday.
It doesn't surprise me they acted like it was going to.
Yeah, so there's a lot of moving on. There's a lot going on. So in talking with Truman today, they recommend switching to their policy if we're changing all of our policies. And based on what we've heard about all the rest of your policies, I would highly recommend that to the board for various reasons, which impact HR, they impact finance. Those are two of the major issues that are impacted. If we switch, we would have to move to Troon's policy the following year for Title IX. I recommend we do it now for a standalone policy, which means it impacts some of our current Neola policies, because you can't have a standalone policy that negates other policy that's in place. If we switch to a standalone Troon Title IX policy, it's actually an anti-harassment policy, which means we have 11 policies with Neola that I would then recommend to the board we have a sunset to them also, similar to the one I recommended tonight for the Title IX, the current Title IX one. I do not have the standalone policy because they do not have the standalone policy, because the court case is heard on July 15th, which is next Monday. After the 15th, we will then get a copy of the Title IX standalone policies and see the impact it would have on our current policies. Again, please understand, the policy is in place to protect all of our students. The guidelines that we use are what we do to make sure we're protecting our students. So the policy is required to be in place, and it changes from, you have decision makers, you have investigators, you have coordinators. It streamlines a lot of that in the new policy. It also expands the definition of what harassment and what the protected classes are. So my recommendation would be after the 15th, I will get the board, it looks like around the 19th, we'll get a chance to get the standalone policy. I will share that with the board, similar to what you've seen in the past when it comes to policy. This one is a brand new policy, so you're not going to see language crossed off and added because we haven't had it. I will send you a list of all the policies from Neola that we will sunset. I know this is a lot. In Neola's policy, please keep in mind, there is a policy for harassment. And there's one for students, there's one for staff, there's one for support staff, there's one for administrators. So when I say we're sunsetting 4 policies, it's really one policy that affects 4 different. With Troon, it's all streamlined. So they have one policy that really encompasses 11 of Neola policies. Does that make a little bit of sense? The one thing I will ask of the board is, based on this timeline, as we know it tonight, and this could change tomorrow, but based on this timeline tonight, is there a possibility of having a additional board meeting the end of July? And we looked at some calendars, and I can send this out. I don't need you to give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, but I'd like to get a feeling for July 25th. I believe that's a Thursday. If we could do a morning meeting, that would be ideal. I'm not trying to diminish the importance of this policy and say we just need a quorum, but I think when you see the policy, it'll be clear we have to get this in place. The work is going to take place by protecting all of our kids, and we know that work is going to take place. And we've been doing that, I believe, and I'm not going to dispute some of the comments that were made tonight based on real situations that are happening, but we want to make sure we're aware of those situations so we can make sure we're protecting all of our kids. That's aside from a policy that we have to put in place. Does that make some, I know that's there's a lot more here.
So can I ask again, and I know we touched on this at the work session too. So if we switch to the Troon policy that expands the definition and basically meets the requirements of the August 1 deadline, and then based on the various stays and the appeals, it basically gets overturned and says that it was overreach, what does Troon suggest we do at that point in time? Is that then a choice of whether you keep that policy or go back to the previous policies? I guess I'd want to know how that would work.
Let me, this is what I'm hearing. I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. So if we have a policy that you just approved to expire July 31, you approve a new policy for Troon, that it goes into effect August 1, and then all of a sudden there's, in Michigan or in the Sixth Circuit or whatever, it changes, what do we have now? Is that what I'm hearing?
Right. Would
So-
we keep the
so
new policy?
My understanding is that we would keep the new policy, but you would then get the updates that are not impacted by because they're not just gonna say, hey, we're not quite sure about this, so it doesn't exist. So we would then have the new policy, but there will be components that will not be impacted because they're all broken down. It's the same thing as the new Neola policy, but I don't want to go through two 22-page documents.
Right.
Because I think they cover the same
Yeah.
stuff. So we would still be required. And the only thing I don't know is if we have a sunset on our current policy, which is recommended, do we then unsunset the old policy so that it's still in place? At the end of the day, we will do what is in the best interest of protecting our kids and follow the law. If that answers that question.
Yes.
And it's so gray right now, and this is every district that's having this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers it.
It does, and as it plays out, it may become more obvious to us as to how we mesh those two or work those two together. But yes, I feel for Troon and everyone else who's working through this, because the court system waits its own time and expects immediate response.
My, Mrs. Armstrong went through the training. I go through the training in 2 weeks, the same training, which will look different. Because it's changing.
I've gone through a training like in April, and it was different.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so we have, the kicker, it's a 3-hour training. I have the same 3-hour training that I just delayed it because I'm thinking, it's gonna change. So as close as I get to August 1, the better. So I think mine's like the 24th, something like that. So, does that clarify? I know a couple board members had reached out and had questions. I have not talked to Mr. DeWitt about the policy, but if you have questions, please ask. And I'm more than willing to talk to community members that have questions too. This is a lot. It's a heavy lift. We're not used to having something that is, normally they tell you it goes into effect on a certain date, and you have 3 months to make sure this is when it starts, and then this is it. Instead, it's like, this has to start August 1, but we're not quite sure what starts August 1, if that makes sense.
I mean, ultimately, yeah, I mean, we'll have more questions once we actually see
Yeah.
the recommendations, and then we'll have more questions then.
Yeah, we might have, we'll figure it out when we get it. I don't want to rush through, but I do want to get something passed by August 1 to make sure kids are protected. Yeah. Is August 1 a Sunday probably? And that normally happens that way.
It's a Thursday.
Okay, that's better. Normally,
Yep,
yeah,
it's
the
a
deadline is like Sunday. Okay. But even if we have time before then to sit down and have conversations, I'll be more than happy to have that. As soon as I get the document, I'm even curious. Is it 60 pages or is it 6? I don't know. And they are,
Yeah, it's closer to 60.
right. And we do know, I'm just going to be very transparent. There's an additional fee for a standalone because we are not a Troon policy holder yet. But to me, I think it's important to streamline this so that our kids are ready to go and safe from day one. So.
Dr. Vanderjack, I will say that, you have the legal aspects of it. This may change in November,
Yep.
based on some other things. But I will say that I trust you as far as the process that you've laid out for us and the way that you've looked at it and studied it. And so at this point, I commend you for how you're bringing this to us, and I appreciate it.
If any board member would like to look at the current recommendations from Neola, I have those, and once we get the Troon, if you want to, I will try to do a comparison between the two. They should be fairly similar. The difference will be you've got a Troon all-in-one policy because it's an anti-harassment policy, and then which includes Title IX, and then you have Neola, which is just Title IX, and then you have 11 other policies that are impacted. So we'll get it to the board. That's my other update is summer science comes home tomorrow morning. And, like the kids are, you've been around our buildings. I know it's July 11th. But our kids are starting to come back to campus too, which is kind of fun. It's been long enough. We were closer to the start of school than the end of school last year, so it's exciting. Yep.
Any questions for Dr. Vanderjack? Hearing none, we'll do a roundtable, and we'll start with Mr. Ken Hall on my right.
Welcome to our new team members, staff members. Great to have you on board. Great to have you as part of the Hudsonville community. So welcome. Great to have you here. Mr. Bear, congratulations. Well deserved. So thank you to, as Dr. Vanderjack said, I mean, just the kids aren't here, but the work doesn't slow down. And we recognize that, from hiring to work on SOAR to construction projects to just the myriad of things that go on. But on top of continuing to do what you do to maintain and run the district, you're pushing forward this sense of continuous improvement, that we can do more for our kids, for our staff, or we can do more, we can be better, is greatly appreciated and recognized. So thank you to all the team for what you do every single day to drive excellence in this district. That's it.
All right, I want to thank you. The updates were great, so really appreciate all the work that you're putting in. Mr. Bear, really excited to have you in your new spot. Well learned. And I want to echo what Greg said to new staff. We got really pumped to have all the new staff. You are in charge of handling our most precious resources, our kids. So please do everything you can to take care of yourselves and to learn and just protect yourselves too, so that you can be the best version of yourselves. And we've got some great resources for you to do that. But yeah, just super excited to have you here and look forward to having dinner with you next month. So.
As a former board member, Mr. Bauman used to say, we need to be lifelong learners. And I think as a board, we would all agree with that. And just seeing the work that's being done and seeing the enthusiasm the newer soon-to-be teachers will have, remember that, because it really never ends. And as long as you are willing to continue to be a learner, we're all going to be successful. So be a lifelong learner. Read that fun book on the beach while you have time. Very good.
I appreciate everybody being here this evening. In recognition of you being here, we've had a shorter meeting than usual. Anyway, but everybody have a great rest of the summer, and we'll see you very soon.
So pleased to hear, Matt, that you're going to be our new principal down there. Good to have you on board. Appreciate your good work. Welcome to new people. You're going to love your work here. It's a great district.
Congratulations, Matt. Welcome to our teachers. Great update from the central office. I hope you do have some time for some R&R though this summer. All right, with that being said, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Is there no section for public comment?
It's at the beginning.
Okay. We can't be flexible now, because I missed it.
Motion to adjourn?
Yes.
First, a motion from Dawn.
I'll
Second.
support that.
Second from Mark. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Meeting is adjourned. Have a great evening.